The fluorescent lights of the precinct cast harsh shadows across Maya Rodriguez's face as she sat in the cold metal chair, her wrists still bearing the red marks from handcuffs that had been removed only minutes earlier. The walls around her seemed to close in with each passing second, painted in that institutional green that somehow made everything feel more desperate. She could hear the shuffle of feet outside the interrogation room, the distant ringing of phones, and the occasional burst of radio chatter that reminded her exactly where she was and why. Detective Sarah Chun sat across from her, a stack of papers and photographs spread between them like evidence of a crime Maya knew she hadn't committed. The detective's expression was a mixture of skepticism and barely concealed disgust, the kind of look reserved for people who had crossed a line that decent folks knew better than to approach. Maya had seen that look before in different contexts, but it never got easier to endure. "So let me get this straight," Detective Chun began, her voice carrying the weight of someone who had heard every lie in the book. "You've been telling people at the Veterans Center downtown that you're a Navy SEAL. You've been accepting drinks, meals, even job interviews based on this claim. You've been wearing military insignia, talking about deployments that never happened, and collecting sympathy and support under false pretenses." Maya's throat felt like sandpaper. She wanted to speak, to explain, to make someone understand that it wasn't what it looked like, but every time she opened her mouth, the words seemed to evaporate before they could form. How could she explain something that she herself was still trying to understand? How could she make sense of memories that felt real, but couldn't possibly be real, of skills she had that she couldn't account for, of knowledge about military operations that came to her as naturally as breathing? The detective continued, flipping through what looked like witness statements. "We have 17 different people who heard you tell detailed stories about your time in the teams. 17 people who bought you coffee, who thanked you for your service, who looked up to you as a hero. And all of it was a lie." "It wasn't a lie," Maya whispered, the words barely audible even in the quiet room. It was the first thing she had said since they brought her in, and her voice cracked with the effort of speaking. Detective Chin's eyebrows shot up. "Excuse me?" "It wasn't a lie," Maya repeated, slightly louder this time, though her voice still trembled. "I know how it looks. I know what you think. But I'm not lying about who I am." The detective leaned back in her chair, studying Maya with the practiced eye of someone who had interrogated hundreds of people over the years. Maya didn't look like the typical stolen valor case that crossed her desk. Most of them were men, usually older, usually with obvious tells that gave away their deception. They would claim ranks that didn't exist, wear uniforms with the wrong insignia, or tell stories that any real veteran would immediately recognize as false. But Maya was different. When she talked about military life, she used the right terminology. She knew things that only someone with real experience would know. She carried herself with the bearing of someone who had been through serious training. Even now, sitting in an interrogation room, facing serious charges, there was something about her posture, her alertness, the way her eyes constantly scanned the room, that spoke of military conditioning. "The problem is," Detective Chun said, pulling out an official-looking document, "according to the Department of Defense, Maya Rodriguez has never served in any branch of the military. No record of enlistment, no record of training, no record of deployment. As far as the government is concerned, you're a civilian who has never worn a uniform in your life." Maya stared at the document, reading her own name on what was clearly an official response to a background check. The words seemed to blur together as she tried to process what she was seeing. No record of service, no record of training, no record of the most defining experiences of her life. But that couldn't be right. She remembered the weight of the gear, the salt spray of ocean water during night insertions, the sound of helicopters coming in for extraction. She remembered the faces of her teammates, their call signs, their quirks, and personalities. She remembered the sand of foreign beaches, the sound of gunfire, the weight of responsibility that came with being part of something bigger than herself. "I remember everything," she said, her voice growing stronger despite the confusion that was tearing through her mind. "I remember basic underwater demolition training. I remember Hell Week. I remember my first deployment to Afghanistan in 2018. I remember my team leader, Chief Petty Officer Marcus Thompson. I remember the night we lost Rodriguez. Wait, that can't be right." She stopped talking, her mind suddenly foggy. Something was wrong with that memory. Rodriguez was her name, not the name of someone they had lost. But she could swear she remembered a teammate named Rodriguez who didn't make it back from a mission. The memory was vivid, painful, real in every way that mattered, but it couldn't be both true and about her. Detective Chun watched this internal struggle play out across Maya's face. She had seen plenty of people try to maintain lies under pressure, but this wasn't what that looked like. This looked like someone genuinely grappling with conflicting information about their own life. It was unsettling in a way that the detective couldn't quite put her finger on. "Look," Detective Chun said, her tone softening slightly, "I've been doing this job for 15 years. I've seen people lie about military service for money, for attention, for respect they felt they deserved. But I've never seen someone who seemed to genuinely believe their own story the way you do. That doesn't make it true, but it makes this whole situation a lot more complicated." Maya looked up, meeting the detective's eyes for the first time since the interrogation began. "What happens now?" "Now we try to figure out what's really going on here. The stolen valor charges are serious, but they're also federal, which means this case is going to get kicked up to higher authorities. In the meantime, we need to understand why you believe something that apparently isn't true." The door to the interrogation room opened, and a uniformed officer stuck his head in. "Detective Chun, there's someone here who says he needs to speak with you about the Rodriguez case. Says it's urgent." Detective Chun frowned. It was unusual for someone to show up unannounced about an ongoing case, especially one that had only been booked a few hours earlier. "Did they say who they were?" "Military," the officer replied. And he's not taking no for an answer. Maya felt her heart rate spike. Military meant this was getting serious fast. It meant that someone up the chain of command had been notified about her case and had decided it warranted immediate attention. In her experience, that was either a very good sign or a very bad one, with no middle ground. Detective Chun stood up, gathering the papers on the table. "I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere." It was meant as a joke, since Maya was obviously not going anywhere while in police custody, but neither of them laughed. The atmosphere in the room had shifted, become heavier with the weight of unknown possibilities. Maya was left alone with her thoughts, which was perhaps the worst punishment of all. She closed her eyes and tried to access the memories that felt so real, so vivid, so undeniably part of who she was. She could see herself in BUD/S training, struggling through the notorious Hell Week that separated the determined from the elite. She could feel the cold Pacific Ocean washing over her as she carried logs with her training class, everyone working together to survive the systematic attempt to break their will. But now, examining those memories more carefully, she noticed things that didn't quite fit, faces that seemed to shift when she wasn't looking directly at them, names that changed mid-conversation, details that contradicted each other in subtle ways that she had never noticed before. What if Detective Chun was right? What if none of it was real? What if she had somehow constructed an elaborate fantasy about military service that had become so real to her that she genuinely believed it? The thought was terrifying, not just because of the legal implications, but because it would mean that her entire sense of identity was built on a foundation of lies she had told herself. But then there are the skills. She could field strip weapons she had never been taught to use. She could read tactical situations with an instinct that seemed to come from nowhere. She could move through urban environments with awareness and efficiency that suggested serious training. Where did those abilities come from, if not from the military experience she remembered? The door opened again, and Detective Chun returned, but she wasn't alone. Behind her came a man in a military uniform that Maya immediately recognized as Navy dress blues. He was older, maybe in his 50s, with the bearing of someone who had spent decades in positions of authority. His uniform carried the insignia of a Rear Admiral, which meant he was high enough in the chain of command to make or break careers with a single decision. Maya automatically started to stand, her body responding to the presence of senior military authority before her conscious mind could process what was happening. Then she caught herself, remembering where she was and why she was there. She was a civilian, according to the official record. She had no reason to show military courtesy to this man. But the Admiral was looking at her with an expression she couldn't read. It wasn't the disgust or contempt she might have expected from a senior military officer confronted with someone accused of stolen valor. Instead, it was something closer to curiosity, mixed with what might have been recognition. "MS. Rodriguez," he said, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. "I'm Rear Admiral James Harrison. I understand you've been telling people that you're a Navy SEAL." "Yes, sir," Maya replied, the military courtesy coming naturally despite everything. I am. Or I was. I don't know anymore." Admiral Harrison studied her for a long moment, his eyes taking in details that Maya couldn't guess at. Finally, he spoke again. "Detective Chun, would you mind giving us a few minutes alone?" The detective looked uncertain. "Sir, this is an active investigation. I'm not sure I can. This is a matter of national security," the Admiral said firmly. "I'm invoking my authority to have a private conversation with this woman. You can wait outside." Detective Chun clearly didn't like being dismissed from her own interrogation room, but she also clearly recognized that she was dealing with authority that trumped her own. She gathered her papers and left, closing the door behind her with a slightly harder pull than was strictly necessary. Admiral Harrison waited until the sound of her footsteps had faded before he spoke again. This time, his voice was quieter, more personal. "Maya Rodriguez, Team 7, Alpha Platoon, deployed to Afghanistan in 2018, Iraq in 2019. Silver Star for actions in Kandahar province. 3 confirmed kills during the Fallujah operation." Maya's world tilted on its axis. This man, this Admiral, was reciting details from her service record with perfect accuracy. Details that she remembered, but that apparently didn't exist in any official database. Details that proved her memories were real, even if the paperwork said otherwise. "How do you know that?" she whispered. Admiral Harrison didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked around the table and stood in front of her, his expression serious. "Roll up your left sleeve." Maya hesitated. She had no idea what he was looking for, but something in his tone suggested that compliance was not optional. She pushed up the sleeve of her shirt, revealing her forearm. The Admiral's eyes immediately focused on a small tattoo just below her elbow. It was simple, elegant, easy to miss if you weren't looking for it. To most people, it would look like a decorative design, maybe something with personal significance, but no broader meaning. But Admiral Harrison was clearly not most people. "That tattoo," he said quietly, "is only given to members of a program that officially doesn't exist. A program that creates operators with capabilities beyond normal human parameters. A program that, when necessary, erases all evidence that its members ever served in any branch of the military." Maya stared at him, trying to process what she was hearing. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about why you remember serving your country with distinction, but have no official record of that service. I'm talking about why you have skills and knowledge that you can't account for through normal training. I'm talking about why you've been living as a civilian with no memory of how you transitioned from active duty to civilian life." The room seemed to spin around Maya as the implications of his words sank in. "You're saying I really am a SEAL?" "I'm saying you're something more than a SEAL," Admiral Harrison replied. "And I'm saying that your detention here has created a problem that goes far beyond a simple case of stolen valor. Your presence in that veteran center, your interactions with other military personnel, your arrest, and questioning here, all of it has created a security breach that needs to be contained." "Contained how?" Admiral Harrison's expression became grim. "That remains to be seen. But the first step is getting you out of here before the situation gets any worse." Maya felt a surge of hope mixed with terror. If what this man was saying was true, then she wasn't losing her mind. Her memories were real. Her service was real. Her identity was real. But it also meant that she was involved in something so classified, so dangerous, that the government had felt it necessary to erase all evidence that she had ever existed as a military operator. "What happened to me?" she asked. "Why don't I remember leaving the service? Why don't I remember becoming a civilian?" "Those are questions that will need to be answered by people with higher security clearances than mine," Admiral Harrison said. "But first, we need to get you out of here and somewhere more secure." He moved toward the door, then paused and looked back at her. "Maya, I need you to understand something. What I've told you in this room cannot be shared with anyone outside of authorized personnel. Not Detective Chun, not a lawyer, not a family member, not anyone. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." "Good. Now, when I come back, we're going to tell Detective Chun that this case has been transferred to federal jurisdiction and that you're being released into military custody pending further investigation. You're going to come with me, and you're going to trust that we're going to figure out what happened to you and how to fix it." He opened the door and stepped out, leaving Maya alone once again. But this time, the isolation felt different. Instead of being trapped with questions that had no answers, she was surrounded by the possibility that answers existed, even if they were more complex and dangerous than she had ever imagined. She looked down at the tattoo on her arm, this small piece of ink that had apparently just changed everything. It looked so innocent, so meaningless to anyone who didn't know what to look for. But, according to Admiral Harrison, it was proof of a life of service that had been deliberately hidden from her, evidence of a program so secret that it existed in the shadows, even within the military itself. Maya Rodriguez had walked into that veterans center thinking she was a former Navy SEAL trying to connect with others who had shared similar experiences. She had been arrested thinking she was either delusional or a fraud. Now she was being told that she was something else entirely, something that existed in the space between official reality and classified truth. As she waited for Admiral Harrison to return, Maya tried to prepare herself for whatever came next. She had a feeling that her life, the civilian life she had been living without really understanding how she had gotten there, was about to change in ways she couldn't even begin to imagine. The only question was whether those changes would help her understand who she really was, or whether they would drag her deeper into a world of secrets that she might not be prepared to handle. The black SUV pulled through gates that Maya was certain hadn't existed 5 minutes earlier. The road they had been traveling on seemed to dead end into a concrete barrier topped with razor wire. But somehow Admiral Harrison had produced a key card that made a section of what looked like solid wall slide silently aside. Beyond it lay a compound that belonged in a different world entirely. Clean white buildings rising from perfectly manicured grounds, with no signs or markings to indicate what purpose any of it served. Maya pressed her face to the tinted window, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. They had been driving for 3 hours since leaving the police station, heading west from the city into what she had assumed was empty desert. Admiral Harrison had maintained a careful silence during the trip, occasionally speaking in low tones into a secure phone, but offering no explanations about their destination or what would happen when they arrived. Now, surrounded by buildings that looked more like a high-tech corporate campus than any military installation she remembered, Maya felt the first stirrings of real fear. Not the confused anxiety that had plagued her during the arrest and interrogation, but something deeper and more primal. The fear of discovering that the life you thought you knew was just the surface of something much more complex and potentially dangerous. "Where are we?" she asked as the SUV came to a stop in front of a building that could have housed the headquarters of any major corporation. "Officially, we're nowhere," Admiral Harrison replied, stepping out of the vehicle. "This facility doesn't exist on any map, doesn't appear in any budget, and doesn't employ anyone who can acknowledge working here. As of right now, you don't exist either. Not in any system that Detective Chun or anyone else in law enforcement can access." Maya followed him out of the SUV, her legs unsteady after the long ride. The air here was different somehow, cleaner and thinner, carrying no sense that might give away the location or purpose of this place. Even the sky looked different, though she couldn't put her finger on why. It was as if they had traveled not just through space, but into some parallel version of reality where the normal rules didn't apply. A woman approached them from the building's entrance, moving with the kind of purposeful stride that Maya recognized from her military memories. She was younger than Admiral Harrison, maybe 40, with short auburn hair and the kind of alert, assessing gaze that missed nothing. Her clothing was civilian, but her bearing was unmistakably military, the posture of someone accustomed to authority and responsibility. "Admiral," the woman said, extending her hand. "Dr. Sarah Mitchell. I'll be handling the Rodriguez case from here." "Doctor of what?" Maya asked, though something in her gut already suspected the answer. "Psychology and neuroscience, with a specialization in memory reconstruction and trauma integration," Dr. Mitchell replied, her tone matter of fact. "I understand you've been experiencing some confusion about your service record." Maya felt a flash of anger. "Confusion? I've been arrested for stolen valor because someone erased every trace of my military service from official records. That's not confusion. That's a cover-up." Dr. Mitchell's expression remained neutral, professional. "Let's talk inside. There are things you need to understand about your situation, and this conversation requires absolute privacy." They walked through the building's entrance into what looked like a corporate lobby, complete with abstract art on the walls and comfortable seating areas that seemed designed to put visitors at ease. But Maya noticed details that didn't fit the corporate facade, security cameras positioned at angles that would cover every inch of the space, doors that looked heavier and more secure than normal office doors, and a subtle hum in the walls that suggested serious electronic surveillance and communication equipment. Dr. Mitchell led them to an elevator that required a key card to operate. As they rose to the third floor, Maya caught a glimpse of the button panel. It showed 7 floors, but the building had looked like it was only 3 stories tall from the outside. Either she had misjudged the building's height, or there were levels that existed below ground. The elevator opened into a hallway that definitely didn't match the corporate atmosphere of the lobby. Here, the walls were institutional white, broken by windows that revealed laboratories and medical facilities that looked more like something from a research hospital than any kind of office building. Maya caught glimpses of equipment she couldn't identify, banks of computers that seemed far more sophisticated than normal business systems, and rooms that looked like they were designed for medical procedures or psychological evaluations. "This way," Dr. Mitchell said, leading them to a conference room that offered a view of the surrounding desert through windows that Maya suspected were bulletproof. The room was comfortable but sterile, with a large table surrounded by ergonomic chairs and walls lined with monitors that could presumably display any information that might be needed during their conversation. Admiral Harrison took a seat at the head of the table, but Dr. Mitchell remained standing, pulling up what looked like a medical file on one of the wall monitors. Maya saw her own photograph, along with data that she couldn't read from her position across the room. "Maya," Dr. Mitchell began, "I'm going to tell you some things that may be difficult to accept. Before I do, I need you to understand that everything discussed in this room is classified at the highest levels of national security. Sharing any of this information with unauthorized personnel would constitute treason and would be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law." "Understand," Maya replied, though she wasn't sure she understood anything anymore. Dr. Mitchell touched something on a tablet, and the wall monitor displayed what looked like a military personnel file. But this wasn't like any file Maya had ever seen during her service. Where a normal file would show basic information like rank, unit assignment, and deployment history, this one contained categories that made no sense: cognitive enhancement level, memory integration status, operational personality framework, and dozens of other headings that seemed to belong in a science fiction story rather than a real military record. "Your name is Maya Rodriguez," Dr. Mitchell continued, "but that's about the only simple fact in your entire file. You were recruited for a classified program in 2017, not through normal military channels, but through a process that identified individuals with specific psychological and physical characteristics that made them suitable for enhancement." "Enhancement?" Maya's voice came out smaller than she intended. "The program you were part of was designed to create operators with capabilities beyond normal human limitations. Enhanced reflexes, improved cognitive processing, accelerated learning, and, most importantly for our current situation, the ability to function effectively with modified or implanted memories." Maya felt the world tilt again, the same disorienting sensation she had experienced in the police station when Admiral Harrison had revealed knowledge that shouldn't have existed. Modified memories? Admiral Harrison spoke for the first time since they had entered the building. "Maya, your memories of SEAL training and deployment are real, but they're not entirely your memories. You experienced those events, but not in the way a normal SEAL would experience them. You were part of a program that compressed years of training and experience into months, using techniques that allowed you to absorb and integrate knowledge at an accelerated rate." Dr. Mitchell pulled up another screen, this one showing what looked like brain scans overlaid with complicated diagrams. "The human brain normally requires years to develop the kind of instinctive responses and decision-making capabilities that make an effective special operations soldier. We developed methods to short-circuit that process, essentially downloading years of experience directly into your memory system." Maya stared at the brain scans, trying to process what she was hearing. "You're telling me that my memories are artificial?" "Not artificial," Dr. Mitchell corrected. "Enhanced and accelerated. You did serve your country with distinction. You did complete missions that saved lives and protected American interests. But you accomplished in 18 months what would normally take 5 to 7 years of training and deployment. And then what happened? Why don't I remember any of this program? Why don't I remember transitioning back to civilian life?" The room fell silent for a long moment. Dr. Mitchell and Admiral Harrison exchanged a look that Maya couldn't interpret, but that clearly carried significance between them. Finally, Dr. Mitchell spoke. "That's where the situation becomes more complicated. The transition you're asking about never happened through normal channels. According to your file, you were declared killed in action during a mission in Syria in 2020. Maya felt like she had been punched in the stomach. What? The official record shows that Petty Officer Maya Rodriguez died during a classified operation near Aleppo. Her body was never recovered due to hostile activity in the area, but satellite imagery and communication intercepts confirmed that there were no survivors from her team. But I'm not dead, Maya said, the words feeling surreal even as she spoke them. No, you're not, Admiral Harrison agreed. Which means that either the intelligence about that mission was wrong, or something happened that isn't reflected in the official records. Dr. Mitchell touched her tablet again, bringing up a timeline that showed Maya's service record alongside dates and locations that she recognized from her memories. But there were gaps, inconsistencies, periods where the official record showed her in one location while her memories placed her somewhere else entirely. We have 18 months of missing time, Dr. Mitchell explained. From March 2020, when you were reported killed in action, to September 2021, when you first appeared in civilian records as Maya Rodriguez, unemployed veteran seeking housing assistance in Phoenix, Arizona. I don't remember any of that, Maya said. I remember completing my deployment in Iraq, getting ready to rotate back stateside, and then nothing until I was living in Phoenix trying to figure out how to function as a civilian. That's consistent with a memory wipe, Dr. Mitchell said matter-of-factly, as if she were discussing something as mundane as a medical procedure. The program you were part of included protocols for removing operational knowledge when an operator was transitioned out of active duty. But the procedures were experimental, and there were sometimes unintended consequences. Maya felt a surge of anger. You erased my memories? You took away pieces of my life. Not intentionally, Admiral Harrison said. The protocol was designed to remove knowledge of classified operations while leaving personal memories intact. But something went wrong with your case, and we lost track of you entirely. Lost track of me? How do you lose track of a person? Dr. Mitchell pulled up another set of documents. The program you were part of was terminated abruptly in 2020 following a security breach. Records were scattered, personnel were reassigned, and some of the research data was lost entirely. You were one of several operators who disappeared during the program's shutdown. Several. Maya leaned forward. There are others like me? There were. We've been able to locate and assist most of them, but you've been missing for over 5 years. When Admiral Harrison identified you through your tattoo, it was the first confirmation we'd had that you were alive. Maya looked down at the small tattoo on her forearm. This piece of ink that had apparently been the key to unlocking a world she hadn't even known existed. What does it mean? The tattoo. It's a marker, Admiral Harrison explained. Everyone who participated in the program received one. It's designed to be invisible to anyone who doesn't know what to look for, but unmistakable to those who do. It contains information about your classification level, your program participation, and your clearance status. And my clearance status is what allowed you to pull me out of police custody. Among other things, Maya, you're not just a former SEAL. You're a classified asset with knowledge of operations and capabilities that remain vital to national security. Even if you can't remember all of it right now, that information is still locked away in your memory, and it needs to be protected. Dr. Mitchell sat down across from Maya, her expression becoming more personal, less clinical. The question we need to answer is whether you want to remember. We have techniques now that we didn't have when you were first processed. We can potentially restore much of what was lost during the memory wipe, but it would mean remembering things that were deliberately erased for your own protection. What kind of things? Operations that officially never happened. Missions that would be considered war crimes if they were carried out by anyone other than enhanced operators working under direct presidential authority. Knowledge of capabilities and technologies that could destabilize global security if they fell into the wrong hands. Maya considered this, weighing the promise of answers against the warning about dangerous knowledge. And if I choose not to remember, then we help you establish a secure civilian identity, provide you with financial support, and ensure that you can live a normal life without fear of your past catching up with you. But you would have to accept that there will always be pieces of yourself that remain missing. The choice seemed impossible. Remember everything and risk being overwhelmed by knowledge she might not be able to handle, or accept a life built on gaps and mysteries that might always leave her feeling incomplete. How long do I have to decide? Maya asked. Time is a luxury we don't have, Admiral Harrison said. Your arrest created a security breach that has attracted attention from people who would very much like to get their hands on a former enhanced operator. We need to either restore your memories and return you to active status or complete the civilian integration process, but we need to do it quickly. What kind of attention? Dr. Mitchell and Admiral Harrison exchange another look, this one clearly indicating that Maya had asked about something they had hoped to avoid discussing. Foreign intelligence services, Dr. Mitchell finally said. Criminal organizations that specialize in extracting and selling classified information. Other government agencies that weren't supposed to know about the enhancement program, but have suspected its existence for years. Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. You're saying I'm in danger? We're saying that Maya Rodriguez, the civilian, is in danger, Admiral Harrison corrected. But Maya Rodriguez, the enhanced operator, would be equipped to handle those threats. The choice is yours, but you need to make it soon. Maya looked out the window at the desert landscape, trying to imagine what her life might look like in either scenario. As a civilian, she would always be looking over her shoulder, always wondering about the gaps in her memory, always feeling like she was living someone else's life. But as an enhanced operator, she would be responsible for knowledge and capabilities that she might not be emotionally prepared to handle. Before I decide, she said, I need to know one more thing. The people I remember serving with, the teammates who felt so real to me, were they part of this program too? Dr. Mitchell consulted her tablet. Some of them. Others were composite personalities created from multiple real individuals to help your memory integration process feel more natural. So some of the people I remember caring about, people I would have died for, never actually existed. The relationships were real to you at the time. Dar. Mitchell said gently. That's what mattered for the operational effectiveness of the program. Maya nodded slowly, feeling a sadness that went deeper than anything she had experienced since waking up in that Phoenix apartment with no clear memory of how she had gotten there. Everything she thought she knew about herself was layers of truth and fiction, reality and enhancement, memory, and implanted experience. But as she sat there, weighing an impossible choice, one thing became clear. Whoever she had been before, whoever she was now, and whoever she might become, she was tired of living in the gaps between truth and mystery. She was ready to know everything, no matter how dangerous or painful that knowledge might be. I want to remember, she said. I want to know who I really am, even if I don't like what I find. Dr. Mitchell smiled for the first time since they had met. I was hoping you would say that. The process we'll use is much more advanced than what was available when you were originally processed. It will take several days, but we should be able to restore most of your memories with minimal side effects. Should be. There are always risks with memory work, Dr. Mitchell admitted. But the alternative is spending the rest of your life as someone you're not, and I don't think that's acceptable to you. Maya looked at Admiral Harrison, who nodded approvingly. When do we start? Tomorrow morning. Tonight, you'll stay here at the facility, get some rest, and prepare yourself mentally for what's coming. By the end of next week, you'll remember everything, the good, the bad, and the classified. Are you ready for that? Maya took a deep breath, feeling more certain about this decision than she had felt about anything since waking up in police custody that morning. I'm ready. As they prepared to leave the conference room, Admiral Harrison paused by the door. Maya, I want you to know that whatever you discover about your past, whatever you remember about the operations you were part of, you serve your country with honor. That's not something that can be taken away by memory wipes or program terminations. You were and are a hero, even if the world can never know about the sacrifices you made. Maya nodded, feeling a warmth in her chest that she couldn't quite identify. For the first time since walking into that veteran center, she felt like she was moving toward answers instead of running from questions. Tomorrow, she would begin the process of becoming whole again, even if that wholeness came with a price she couldn't yet imagine. Maya woke up screaming, her body drenched in sweat, and her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The clinical white room around her took several seconds to come into focus, and even when it did, the images from her restored memories continued to flash behind her eyes with terrifying clarity. Blood on sand. The sound of gunfire that seemed to go on forever. The weight of a teammate's body as she dragged him toward the extraction point, knowing he was already gone, but unable to leave him behind. Dr. Mitchell rushed into the room, followed by two medical technicians who immediately began checking the monitors that Maya only now realized were connected to sensors on her body. The memory restoration process had been going on for 3 days, and each session brought back pieces of her past that were more vivid and more disturbing than anything she had experienced as a civilian. "It's okay, Dr." Mitchell said, her voice calm and professional despite being awakened at 3 in the morning. "You're safe. You're at the facility. The memories you're experiencing are from 2019, during your deployment to Iraq. They can't hurt you now." But Maya knew that wasn't entirely true. The memories could absolutely hurt her now, because they were revealing a version of herself that she wasn't sure she wanted to be. The enhanced operator who existed in these restored memories was someone who could kill without hesitation, who could make calculations about acceptable losses, who could carry out orders that no normal person would be able to live with. "I remember the school," Maya whispered, her voice hoarse from screaming. "There was a school in Mosul. We knew there were civilians inside, but intelligence said there was a high-value target in the building. I remember making the decision to proceed with the mission despite the risk to innocent people." Dr. Mitchell sat down on the edge of the bed, her expression carefully controlled. "You remember the operational parameters. Do you remember the outcome?" Maya closed her eyes, forcing herself to access the full memory despite how much it hurt. "We got the target, but there were children in the basement. 7 children who were supposed to be evacuated but got left behind when the fighting started. Do you remember what you did when you found them?" The memory came back slowly, painfully. Maya remembered the moment of choice, standing in that basement with automatic weapons fire echoing from the floors above, looking at 7 terrified children who couldn't have been more than 10 years old. The mission parameters said to neutralize all potential witnesses. Her enhancement conditioning said to follow orders without hesitation. But something deeper, something that the program hadn't been able to modify, had made her choose differently. "I got them out," Maya said, the memory becoming clearer. "I called in a medevac helicopter and risked blowing our cover to get those children to safety. And then I falsified the mission report to protect the pilot who helped me. That decision saved 7 lives," Dr. Mitchell said. "It also earned you a formal reprimand from your commanding officer and nearly got you kicked out of the program." Maya looked at Dr. Mitchell, trying to understand the point she was making. "But I stayed in the program. I kept taking the enhancement treatments. I kept carrying out missions." "You did. Do you want to know why?" Maya wasn't sure she did want to know, but she nodded anyway. Dr. Mitchell pulled up a chair and sat down, settling in as if she was prepared for a long conversation. "Because you were never the perfect enhanced operator they thought they were creating. Yes, you could process tactical information faster than any normal human. Yes, you could learn new skills in a fraction of the time it would take a regular soldier. Yes, you could function in high-stress situations that would break most people. But you never lost your humanity. Every single enhanced operator in the program eventually reached a point where they became emotionally detached from the consequences of their actions. It was considered a feature, not a bug. Operators who could carry out any mission without being slowed down by moral considerations." Maya felt a chill. "And I didn't become detached. You developed what the program psychiatrists called emotional resistance to enhancement. You became more capable, but you also became more empathetic. You saved those children in Mosul. You risked your life to protect civilian contractors in Afghanistan. You repeatedly chose to interpret mission parameters in ways that minimized harm to non-combatants. That sounds like a good thing. It was a good thing for humanity. It was a problem for the program. Enhanced operators were supposed to be predictable, controllable assets. You became something else entirely, someone with superhuman capabilities, but normal human emotions. You were simultaneously the program's greatest success and its biggest failure." Maya tried to process this information alongside the memories that were still flooding back from the restoration sessions. She remembered feeling isolated from the other enhanced operators, who seemed to view missions in purely tactical terms, while she found herself caring about consequences they couldn't even see. She had thought there was something wrong with her, that the enhancement process hadn't worked properly. "Is that why the program was terminated? Because of operators like me?" Dr. Mitchell hesitated, consulting her tablet in a way that suggested she was checking how much she was authorized to reveal. "The program was terminated because of what happened during your final mission." Maya felt her stomach drop. She had been dreading this moment, the restoration of memories from the mission that had allegedly killed her. "What happened in Syria? You were sent in with a team of 5 enhanced operators to eliminate a terrorist cell that had acquired weapons-grade plutonium. It was supposed to be a clean extraction mission. Get in, neutralize the targets, secure the plutonium, get out." "I remember the briefing," Maya said, the memories starting to surface despite her fear of what they might contain. We had perfect intelligence. We knew exactly where the targets would be, exactly when they would be vulnerable, exactly how to approach without triggering their security systems. Do you remember what went wrong? Maya, concentrated, pushing through the mental barriers that her mind had erected around the traumatic memories. The intelligence was wrong. Not wrong, deliberately falsified. When we got to the location, there wasn't a terrorist cell. There was a family. A Syrian doctor who had been treating refugees, his wife, his children, his elderly parents. Dr. Mitchell's expression became grim. Do you remember your orders when it became clear that the intelligence was fabricated? Proceed with the mission. Eliminate all witnesses. Secure the plutonium that wasn't actually there. Maya felt sick as the memories became clearer. Someone had set us up to commit mass murder. Do you remember what you did? Maya closed her eyes, feeling the weight of that moment pressing down on her like a physical force. She remembered standing in that Syrian house, looking at a family that had done nothing wrong, while her enhanced teammates prepared to carry out orders that would have been war crimes under any reasonable interpretation of international law. I refused, she said quietly. I told the team to stand down. I said we needed to abort the mission and report that the intelligence was false. And how did your team respond? The memory came back with perfect, terrible clarity. They said they had secondary orders. If any team member refused to complete the mission, that team member was to be eliminated as a security risk. Maya opened her eyes and looked at Dr. Mitchell, understanding beginning to dawn. They tried to kill me. 4 enhanced operators with orders to eliminate a security risk against 1 enhanced operator trying to protect innocent civilians. According to the mission report filed by the surviving team members, you were killed during the firefight that followed. But I wasn't killed. No, you weren't. You escaped, but not before doing something that brought the entire program crashing down. Maya struggled to remember what had happened next. The memories were fragmented, chaotic, filled with adrenaline and fear and a desperate need to survive long enough to expose what was really happening. I recorded everything, she said, the memories suddenly crystal clear. I had been recording all my missions because I suspected something was wrong with our intelligence sources. When the team tried to kill me, I transmitted everything to the Pentagon through emergency communication channels. A complete record of an enhanced operations team being ordered to commit mass murder, followed by orders to kill one of their own to cover it up. The recording reached the Secretary of Defense within 6 hours. And that ended the program. That ended the program, triggered a congressional investigation, and resulted in court-martial proceedings for 17 officers. It also made you the most wanted person in several different circles. Heroes to some, traitors to others. Maya felt overwhelmed by the implications of what she was remembering. So when I was reported killed in action, you were officially declared dead to protect you from retaliation while the investigation proceeded. The memory wipe and civilian integration were supposed to give you a normal life while keeping you safe from people who wanted revenge for exposing the program. But something went wrong with the memory wipe. Dr. Mitchell nodded. The technology was experimental, and your brain had been modified by years of enhancement treatments. When the technicians tried to erase your operational memories while leaving your personal memories intact, the process was more traumatic than expected. You lost almost everything. Not just the classified operations, but your identity, your sense of purpose, even basic memories about how to function in civilian society. Maya felt a mixture of relief and horror. Relief that she hadn't been delusional about her military service, that her memories of being a SEAL were real, even if they were complicated. Horror at the realization that her own government had tried to erase her identity to cover up a program that had gone terribly wrong. The other enhanced operators on my team, what happened to them? Dr. Mitchell consulted her tablet again. 2 were convicted of war crimes and are serving life sentences in military prison. 1 died by suicide during the investigation. The 4th disappeared and is presumed dead. And the people who gave the orders? The ones who set up that family in Syria to be murdered. Some are prosecuted. Others received administrative punishments. A few escaped accountability entirely by claiming they were following orders from higher up the chain of command. Maya felt a rage building inside her that was unlike anything she had experienced as a civilian. This wasn't the confused anger of someone who couldn't understand their own memories. This was the focused fury of an enhanced operator who had been betrayed by the system she had sworn to serve. So what happens now? Maya asked. I remember everything. I know what I did, what was done to me, what I'm capable of. What's the plan? Dr. Mitchell stood up, her expression becoming more formal. That's not my decision to make. Admiral Harrison wants to see you when you're ready. There are options available to you that weren't available 5 years ago. What kind of options? The kind that involve making the people responsible for what happened to you pay for their crimes. The kind that involve using your unique skills and knowledge to prevent similar programs from being developed by less scrupulous governments. The kind that involve becoming someone who can make sure that enhanced operators are never again put in the position you were in. Maya felt a sense of purpose crystallizing inside her for the first time since regaining her memories. 4 or 5 years, she had been drifting through a civilian life that never felt real, always feeling like she was missing essential pieces of herself. Now, she understood why. She hadn't been missing pieces, she had been deliberately stripped of them to serve someone else's agenda. I want to see Admiral Harrison, she said, getting out of bed despite the exhaustion that the memory restoration process had left her with. I want to know what my options are. Are you sure you're ready for this? The restoration process isn't complete yet. There are still memories that haven't been fully integrated. Maya looked at herself in the mirror across the room, seeing for the first time in years the person she really was underneath the confused civilian identity she had been living with. She looked older, scarred by experiences that most people couldn't even imagine. But she also looked determined, focused, ready to take control of her own destiny instead of being manipulated by people who saw her as an asset to be used or a problem to be solved. I'm ready, she said. I know who I am now. I know what was done to me, and I know what I'm capable of. It's time to decide what I'm going to do about it. Dr. Mitchell smiled, but there was something sad in her expression. Maya, you should know that once you leave this room as a fully restored enhanced operator, you can never go back to being the civilian you were. The knowledge you have, the skills you possess, the experiences you remember, they make you a different person than the one who walked into that police station a week ago. Good, Maya said, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. That person was lost, confused, living a lie. I'd rather be dangerous and honest than safe and fake. As Dr. Mitchell left to arrange the meeting with Admiral Harrison, Maya remained in front of the mirror, studying the face that looked familiar but somehow different than it had a week ago. She was no longer Maya Rodriguez, the confused civilian who couldn't understand her own memories. She was Maya Rodriguez, the enhanced operator who had chosen humanity over orders, who had exposed a criminal program at the cost of her own identity, and who was now ready to reclaim both her past and her future. The question was no longer who she had been or how she had gotten to this point. The question was who she was going to become, and what she was going to do with capabilities that made her more than human in a world that desperately needed someone willing to fight for what was right, even when the cost was everything she had ever known about herself. Admiral Harrison's office looked like it belonged to someone who had spent decades managing secrets that could reshape world history. The walls were lined with photographs showing him with presidents, foreign dignitaries, and military leaders whose faces Maya recognized, but whose names were classified above her pay grade. But what drew her attention were the files stacked on his desk, thick folders marked with classification levels that she hadn't seen since her days as an enhanced operator. Please sit down, Admiral Harrison said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. He looked older than he had a week ago, as if the process of restoring Maya's memories had aged him along with her. How are you feeling? Like someone who just discovered that her entire life for the past 5 years has been a carefully constructed lie, Maya replied, settling into the chair. But also like someone who finally understands why nothing ever felt right about that life. Admiral Harrison nodded, opening the top file on his desk. Dr. Mitchell tells me that your memory restoration is nearly complete. You remember the enhancement program, your missions, the events in Syria that led to the program's termination. I remember everything, Maya said, her voice carrying a hardness that hadn't been there as a civilian, including the names and faces of everyone who betrayed me and the families we were sent to murder. Which brings us to why I wanted to see you. Admiral Harrison pulled out a photograph and slid it across the desk to Maya. Do you recognize this man? Maya studied the image, feeling her enhanced memory systems automatically cataloging and cross-referencing facial features, posture, background details. The man in the photograph was in his 60s, well-dressed, standing in front of what looked like a corporate office building. He had the bearing of someone accustomed to authority, but There was something in his eyes that suggested he was comfortable with moral compromises that would destroy most people. Colonel James Richardson, Maya said, the name coming to her immediately. He was our primary contact for mission parameters during the Syria operation. The one who told us to proceed, even after it became clear that the intelligence was fabricated. Former Colonel Richardson, Admiral Harrison corrected. He was court-martialed and stripped of rank following the investigation your recording triggered. He served 18 months in military prison before being released on a technicality related to classified evidence procedures. Maya felt the familiar surge of anger that had been building since her memories returned. 18 months for ordering the mass murder of innocent civilians? 18 months was all we could make stick. Richardson had covered his tracks well, and he had powerful friends who were willing to protect him to avoid further exposure of the enhancement program. Where is he now? Admiral Harrison pulled out another photograph, this one showing the same man in an expensive suit, shaking hands with foreign officials Maya didn't recognize. He's working as a private military contractor, selling his expertise to governments and organizations that don't ask too many questions about his methods. Our intelligence suggests he's trying to recreate the enhancement program using funding from sources that definitely don't have America's best interests at heart. Maya studied the photograph, feeling her tactical training automatically assessing the situation. You want me to stop him? I want to offer you a choice, Admiral Harrison said carefully. Option 1. We help you establish a completely new civilian identity. We give you enough money to live comfortably for the rest of your life. We provide ongoing medical support for any side effect from the enhancement process, and we ensure that no one from your past can ever find you. You disappear completely and get to live a normal life. And option 2? Admiral Harrison opened another file, this one containing what looked like mission parameters that Maya recognized from her active duty days. You accept reactivation as an enhanced operator under a new command structure with direct oversight from the Secretary of Defense. Your first mission would be to locate and neutralize the threat represented by James Richardson and anyone else trying to recreate the enhancement program. Maya looked at the mission parameters, noting the familiar format and classification markings. But there were differences from the orders she remembered from her active duty. These parameters included specific protections for civilian populations, strict rules of engagement, and oversight mechanisms that hadn't existed during the original program. This looks different from what we operated under before, she observed. It is different. The investigation you triggered led to a complete overhaul of special operations protocols. Enhanced operators now work under strict oversight with built-in safeguards to prevent the kind of abuse that happened in Syria. You would have the authority to refuse any mission that violated international law or American values. Maya felt a bitter laugh escape her throat. The authority I should have had all along. Yes, and more importantly, you would have the support and resources to ensure that no one else goes through what you went through. Admiral Harrison leaned back in his chair, studying Maya's reaction. There's something else you need to know. Richardson isn't the only threat we're dealing with. Your disappearance for 5 years created a problem that we're only now beginning to understand. What kind of problem? Other enhanced operators have gone missing. 3 that we know of, possibly more. We believe they're being recruited by foreign intelligence services or criminal organizations that want to exploit their capabilities. Maya felt a chill. How is that possible? I thought all the enhanced operators were accounted for after the program ended. We thought so too. But the memory wipe technology that was used on you was experimental, and not all the procedures were successful. Some operators retained their enhanced capabilities, but lost their loyalty to the United States. Others simply disappeared during the chaos that followed the program's termination. Admiral Harrison pulled out a world map marked with red dots in various locations. These represent potential sightings of enhanced operators working for hostile entities. Moscow, Beijing, Tehran, Caracas. Someone is building a network of operatives with capabilities that rival or exceed what our best special forces can do. Maya studied the map, her tactical mind automatically calculating the implications. If hostile governments have access to enhanced operators, then we need enhanced operators of our own to counter the threat. But not like before. Not operators who blindly follow orders without considering consequences. We need operators who can think for themselves, who can make moral decisions in impossible situations, who can be trusted with capabilities that make them more dangerous than entire conventional military units. Operators like me. Operators exactly like you. Maya, your refusal to follow illegal orders in Syria didn't just expose a criminal program. It proved that enhanced capabilities don't have to come at the cost of human decency. You became something we had never seen before, an enhanced operator with a conscience. Maya stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the desert landscape that surrounded the facility. She thought about the civilian life she had been living, the constant sense that she was pretending to be someone she wasn't, the frustration of having capabilities she couldn't use, and knowledge she couldn't access. But she also thought about the cost of being an enhanced operator. The missions that haunted her dreams, the weight of decisions that normal people never had to make, the isolation that came from being something more and less than human at the same time. If I accept reactivation, she said without turning around, what guarantee do I have that I won't end up back where I started? Taking orders from people who see me as an expendable asset. You don't, Admiral Harrison said honestly. But you have something now that you didn't have before, knowledge of what happens when the system fails, and the authority to refuse missions that violate your principles. More importantly, you have me as your direct commanding officer, and I give you my word that I will never put you in the position Richardson put you in. Maya turned back to face him. Your word. My word. And more than that, a promise that if anyone ever orders you to do something that violates international law or basic human decency, you have my authorization to tell them to go to hell and face whatever consequences that brings. For the first time since her memories had been restored, Maya smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. It was the smile of someone who had been given permission to be dangerous in service of something she believed in. What about the other missing enhanced operators? The ones who might be working for hostile governments? That would be your primary mission focus. Find them, assess whether they could be brought back into the fold. And if not, Admiral Harrison didn't finish the sentence, but Maya understood. And Richardson? Richardson is a secondary target, but an important one. He represents a direct threat to American interests, and he has knowledge that could be used to create more enhancement programs. Programs that won't have the oversight and safeguards that we've implemented. Maya sat back down, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on her. As a civilian, she could disappear and live a quiet life, but she would always know that people like Richardson were out there using her technology and her techniques to create horrors that she might have prevented. As an enhanced operator, she could make a difference, but she would be signing up for a life of violence and moral complexity that most people couldn't handle. But then she thought about those 7 children in the basement in Mosul, the one she had risked everything to save. She thought about the Syrian family that Richardson had tried to make her murder. She thought about enhanced operators somewhere in the world, carrying out missions without the moral framework that might stop them from becoming monsters. I want to see the mission parameters for the Richardson operation, she said. Admiral Harrison handed her another file, this one containing detailed intelligence about Richardson's current activities, his known associates, and his suspected locations. As Maya read through the information, she felt her tactical mind automatically formulating plans, identifying weaknesses, calculating probabilities. Richardson was operating out of a compound in Eastern Europe, using front companies to recruit ex-military personnel for security consulting work. Intelligence suggested he was working with at least 3 foreign governments and had access to funding sources that would allow him to fully reconstitute the enhancement program within 2 years. He's not just trying to recreate the program, Maya observed. He's trying to improve it. These genetic markers he's looking for, this neurological testing he's conducting, he's trying to create enhanced operators who don't have the moral flexibility that caused me to refuse orders. Enhanced sociopaths, Admiral Harrison agreed. Operators with superhuman capabilities, but no conscience to limit their effectiveness. Maya closed the file and looked directly at Admiral Harrison. I accept reactivation, but I have conditions. Name them. First, I want complete operational autonomy. I'll accept mission parameters from you, but tactical decisions in the field are mine to make. No more micromanagement, no more secondary orders, no more situations where I'm told to follow illegal commands. Agreed. Second, I want access to all intelligence about missing enhanced operators. Not just what you think I need to know, everything. If I'm going to hunt down people with my capabilities, I need to understand exactly what I'm dealing with. Agreed. Third, when this mission is over, when the immediate threats are neutralized, I want a guarantee that the enhancement technology will be destroyed completely. No more programs, no more attempts to create superhuman operators, no more situations where people like me get caught between following orders and following their conscience. Admiral Harrison was quiet for a long moment, considering this final condition. That's a decision that would have to be made at the highest levels of government. Then, make sure those highest levels understand that this is not negotiable. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life cleaning up messes created by enhancement programs only to have new programs create new messes. I'll take that message to the Secretary of Defense personally. Maya stood up, feeling more like herself than she had since walking into that police station a week ago. When do I start? Immediately. Your gear is being prepared. Your support team is being assembled, and intelligence is working around the clock to pin down Richardson's exact location. You could be operational within 72 hours. As Maya headed for the door, Admiral Harrison called out to her. Maya, for what it's worth, I'm sorry about what happened to you. What Richardson and the others did was unforgivable, and I'm glad you're getting the chance to make them pay for it. Maya paused with her hand on the doorknob. Admiral, I'm not doing this for revenge. I'm doing this because someone needs to make sure that no one else goes through what I went through. Richardson and his friends turned me into a weapon, but they couldn't turn me into a monster. Now I'm going to make sure they never get the chance to try again. As she left Admiral Harrison's office, Maya felt a familiar sensation of mission focus settling over her like armor. She was no longer Maya Rodriguez, the confused civilian, struggling to understand memories that didn't make sense. She was Maya Rodriguez, the enhanced operator, armed with capabilities that made her more than human and a moral compass that kept her human despite those capabilities. James Richardson had tried to turn her into an instrument of murder, and when she refused, he had tried to have her killed. Now, she was going to show him exactly what kind of instrument she had chosen to become instead. The compound in Montenegro looked exactly like what Maya had expected from James Richardson. Expensive, isolated, and designed to project power while maintaining plausible deniability. From her position on a ridge overlooking the facility, she could see the carefully manicured grounds, the state-of-the-art security systems, and the private airstrip that would allow Richardson to disappear at the first sign of trouble. But Maya wasn't planning to give him that chance. It had taken 3 months to track Richardson to this location, following a trail that led through shell companies in the Cayman Islands, weapons shipments traced through Eastern European arms dealers, and intelligence gathered from sources that Admiral Harrison preferred not to identify too specifically. During that time, Maya had also located 2 of the missing enhanced operators. One had been killed in action while working for a Russian intelligence service, and the other had been successfully extracted from a criminal organization in South America, and was now undergoing rehabilitation similar to what Maya had experienced. The 3rd missing operator was here, in Richardson's compound, according to intelligence that Maya had verified through her own reconnaissance. Marcus Torres, enhanced in the same program as Maya, had disappeared shortly after the Syria incident and had been presumed dead until satellite imagery captured him training Richardson's new recruits. Maya adjusted her position slightly, using the enhanced visual processing that was part of her modification to study the compound's layout. She could see heat signatures through the building's walls, identifying guard positions, patrol patterns, and what looked like a training facility where Richardson was conducting his illegal experiments on new recruits. Her mission parameters were clear, but flexible. Neutralize Richardson and anyone directly involved in recreating the enhancement program. Secure any research data or enhancement technology. Extract Marcus Torres if possible. Eliminate him if he proved to be an active threat. Minimize collateral damage to anyone not directly involved in the illegal operations. But Maya had added her own objective to the mission. Find out exactly how many people knew about the enhancement technology and make sure that knowledge died with Richardson's operation. She activated her communication system, speaking quietly into her throat microphone. Control, this is Alpha 1. I have eyes on the target. Request permission to proceed with infiltration. Admiral Harrison's voice came back through her earpiece, clear despite the encrypted transmission from halfway around the world. Alpha 1, you are cleared to proceed. Remember, this needs to look like an accident or criminal activity, not a military operation. Understood. Alpha 1 going dark. Maya began her approach to the compound, moving through the terrain with the fluid efficiency that her enhancement training had drilled into her. Every step was calculated, every shadow was utilized, every sound was minimized. She had become something between human and force of nature, moving through the darkness like she belonged to it. The compound's perimeter security was impressive by normal standards, but Maya's enhanced senses allowed her to detect patrol patterns, identify blind spots in the camera coverage, and disable electronic sensors without triggering alarms. Within 30 minutes, she was inside the main building, moving through corridors that reminded her uncomfortably of the facility where her own memories had been restored. The difference was that Richardson's facility felt malevolent in a way that the legitimate military installation never had. The walls were lined with medical equipment that looked more like instruments of torture than healing, and the room she passed contained restraint systems that suggested the enhancement process here was not entirely voluntary. Maya found Richardson in what appeared to be a command center, reviewing files on subjects who were undergoing his version of the enhancement process. He looked older than in the photographs Admiral Harrison had shown her, but his eyes held the same calculating coldness that she remembered from their brief interactions during the Syria mission. "Hello, James," Maya said, stepping into the room with her weapon drawn, but not immediately aimed at him. Richardson looked up from his files, and Maya was gratified to see genuine shock cross his face before he managed to control his expression. "Maya Rodriguez, I thought you were dead. You tried very hard to make that true. Twice, in fact." Richardson slowly set down the file he had been reading, his hands visible on the desk in a gesture that might have been surrender or might have been preparation to reach for a weapon. "You know, I always wondered what went wrong with your enhancement process. Why you couldn't follow simple orders without developing moral complications." "Simple orders? You mean like murdering innocent families?" "I mean like following the directives of your commanding officers without second-guessing the strategic implications that you weren't clear to understand." Richardson's voice carried the same condescending tone that Maya remembered from their operational briefings. "Do you know how much damage you caused with your little recording stunt? How many vital operations had to be canceled because of your attack of conscience?" Maya kept her weapon trained on Richardson while using her peripheral vision to scan for threats. "Do you know how many innocent people are alive because I refuse to follow illegal orders? Innocent people die in wars, Maya. That's the nature of conflict. The enhancement program was designed to create operators who could make the hard decisions that normal people can't make. You were supposed to be beyond such pedestrian concerns as individual civilian casualties. And when I proved that I couldn't be turned into a sociopath, you tried to have me killed." Richardson smiled, and it was exactly as cold and calculating as Maya remembered. "I tried to eliminate a security risk before it could compromise ongoing operations. Standard protocol for any classified program." Maya felt her enhanced reflexes trigger a split second before Richardson's hand moved toward what she now realized was a concealed weapon drawer in his desk. Her training took over completely, muscle memory and enhanced reaction time combining to put 3 rounds center mass before Richardson could even touch his gun. Richardson fell back in his chair, looking more surprised than pained. "Enhanced reflexes," he managed to say, blood beginning to seep through his shirt. "At least that part of the process worked correctly." "The process worked fine," Maya said, moving around the desk to ensure he didn't have access to any other weapons or communication devices. "You just never understood what you were trying to create." "We were trying to create the perfect soldier," Richardson whispered, his voice becoming weaker. "Someone who could carry out any mission without being limited by human weakness. You were trying to create monsters. But even your enhanced sociopaths had one fundamental flaw. They were still human underneath all the modifications. Still capable of growth, still capable of change, still capable of choosing something better." Maya knelt beside Richardson's chair, meeting his eyes as he struggled to maintain consciousness. "Marcus Torres is here, isn't he? What did you do to him?" Richardson's smile became even more unpleasant as blood began to appear at the corner of his mouth. "Marcus volunteered to continue his service. Unlike you, he understands that moral flexibility is a requirement for truly effective operations." "Where is he?" "Training facility, basement level. He's working with our new recruits, teaching them to overcome the same moral limitations that made you useless." Maya stood up, checking her watch. She had been inside the compound for 45 minutes, which meant she had maybe 15 minutes before Richardson's security team would notice his absence and begin searching for threats. "One more question, James. Who else knows about the enhancement technology? Who else is trying to recreate the program?" Richardson's eyes were beginning to glaze over, but he managed one final smile. "Everyone, Maya. The technology is already out there. China, Russia, North Korea, half a dozen terrorist organizations, 3 different criminal syndicates. We opened Pandora's box 5 years ago, and there's no closing it now. But your operation ends here. My operation was never the main threat. I was just one small piece of a much larger puzzle. Killing me won't stop what's coming. Richardson's eyes closed, and Maya checked for a pulse to confirm what she already knew. The man who had tried to turn her into a weapon and then tried to have her killed was finally dead, but his final words suggested that her mission was far from over. Maya activated her communication system as she headed toward the basement training facility. Control, primary target, is neutralized. Proceeding to secondary objective. Copy, Alpha 1. Status on extraction timeline. 15 minutes, maybe less. There are complications I need to brief you on after mission completion. Maya found the basement training facility exactly where Richardson had indicated, but what she discovered there was worse than anything she had imagined. The space had been converted into a combination laboratory and torture chamber where Richardson had been conducting enhancement procedures on unwilling subjects using technology that made the original program look humane by comparison. Marcus Torres was there, but he wasn't training recruits. He was strapped to an examination table, his body covered with surgical scars and monitoring equipment that suggested he had been undergoing force modifications for months. His eyes were open, but there was no recognition in them, no sign of the enhanced operator Maya had once known. Marcus, Maya said, moving quickly to release his restraints. Can you hear me? It's Maya Rodriguez. I'm here to get you out. Marcus turned his head toward her voice, but his expression remained blank. When he spoke, his voice was flat, emotionless. Primary directive: eliminate security risks. Secondary directive: protect operational assets. Tertiary directive: complete assigned missions without moral considerations. Maya felt sick. Richardson hadn't been trying to recreate the enhancement program. He had been trying to perfect it by removing the human elements that had made operators like Maya unreliable. Marcus had been turned into exactly what Richardson had always wanted: a human weapon without a conscience. Marcus, listen to me. You're Marcus Torres. You served with distinction in the enhancement program. You have a sister named Maria who lives in San Diego. You collect vintage motorcycles. You once told me that the thing that scared you most about being an enhanced operator was losing yourself in the process. For just a moment, something flickered in Marcus's eyes. A spark of recognition, maybe even pain. But then it was gone, replaced by the flat, mechanical focus that Richardson had programmed into him. You are not authorized personnel, Marcus said, beginning to sit up on the examination table.